Okay, we're now delighted to, we listened to your feedback and the polling says you want a new moderator. So we're delighted to have Heather Gordon from Martyn, Fiddler, Aviation, and she's now going to take us through the new world of aircraft registration.
So, good afternoon, everybody. We know we need to register aircraft, and in the past this has been probably a bit of a formality, but over the last 12 years things have changed, and we've got new aircraft registries popping up with a more commercial approach to matters, and you've got legacy aircraft registries changing their approach to meet that. So there's a lot more choice. And I'm very pleased to have a wonderful panel who, all of you individually, have tried actively to change the approach to aircraft registration, and I think very successfully. So if I can ask the panel each to introduce themselves and their aircraft registry, that'd be great.
Very good day to you. My name's Simon Williams, Director of Civil Aviation for the Isle of Man. The aircraft registry was started on the 1st of May 2007, and we've just celebrated our 10th anniversary.
Good morning. Or afternoon, as it is now. Richard Smith, the Director General of Civil Aviation for the Cayman Islands Aircraft Registry. The registry has been in existence since the 60s and catering to offshore registries from the early 70s, so we have quite a history in that market. And happy to be here with the rest of my colleagues.
My name is Len Cormier, and I'm the Safety Oversight Advisor for the Bermuda Civil Aviation Authority. Bermuda Register has been around since 1931, so I guess we're the legacy registry. We got everybody beat. Been around 85 years, so you probably know about us. Just a few highlights and changes. Bermuda has 833 aircraft on the registry today. Most of them, of course, are Article 83 BIS aircraft based in Russia. We have 711 of those. We have our headquarters in Bermuda, but I'm happy to announce that we've opened an office in Farnborough. We used to have one in London. We're going to have 4 airworthiness inspectors there within a month. So if you're into Farnborough sometimes, please drop in and say hi. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Colindres from Marino Aircraft Registry, which probably is the newest entrance in the market. The Civil Aviation Authority itself has been since 1988. The registry since 2012. It was launched in the Middle East in Dubai. Today we are close to 200 aircraft, a mix of private and commercial, which we will go into detail.
So good afternoon. My name is Alexandria Colindres, and I'm with the Registry of Aruba. It was established in 1995, so we're coming up on 25 years. Like San Marino, we have around 150, 180 aircraft with a mix of commercial and private.
Thank you very much. So to lead into our first question, I've picked up my Transport Malta bag. Thank you very much. And inside I have my wonderful San Marino sunglasses, which I'll try and present in for a little while. And when I go to bed tonight, I have my Registry of Aruba nightshades, which I can put on. But stripping that away, taking away the marketing, taking away the amazing eBay stands, the fantastic glasses, what do each of the panelists consider, if you had to put it out there, the 2 most important factors that when somebody is choosing an aircraft registry they have to consider?
Safety. That's what we're here for. I'm an aviation safety regulator. But I think, in this modern business world, particularly with business aviation, we have a great industry, which I think we should all be very proud of. And my colleagues on the panel I know will be as well. The business aviation industry works 24/7, 365. So although safety will always be the first thing that you'll only ever hear me say, and I'm sure similar for my colleagues, very quickly behind that then has to be a degree of customer service and responsiveness.
I would agree with that. Safety first, always. And the element of responsiveness goes a long way. And I think if you successfully deal with the safety oversight matters and the responsiveness, then it bodes for your reputation and everything will fall in place. The Aviation Authority is started out as just that, an aviation authority. The registry evolved as part of the authority. So we always have the focus, safety first, and then of course we're very cognizant of the global business and the various time zones that we have to deal with. So finding ways and means of dealing with that is very important to us. You know, we deal with Asia with 13 hours difference. We've managed to use our electronic media through a secure web portal to allow applicants to make applications and upload documents at whatever time zone they want and able to respond efficiently. So we think that's a key to being an effective registry.
Of course, I'll agree with safety, but I think also you have to have a reputation for safety oversight system that's effective. The last thing you want is your corporate aircraft to land somewhere and become a target for inspection because there's a perception in that state that you don't have effective safety oversight. Service is also very important. This is an area where Bermuda is starting to make a lot of changes. I think over the next 6 months, you're going to find that we're becoming more focused on service. Our Farnborough's office will extend our working day to 12 hours. That's a start. And we're looking at establishing an office in the Asia region as well. Thank you.
Safety it is. So yeah, going back to what my colleagues have said, I definitely will say that safety it is the main reason we are here. I mean, there is a misconception as I grew seeing Bermuda and Cayman from my Aruba days and learning from them, and then the Isle of Man getting into places, there was always this idea about being offshore and being flexible, not being compliant, and that's completely wrong. I mean, there's a difference between being flexible and having acceptable means of compliance in aviation. And I think this is the approach that we ourselves in San Marino, and I believe our colleagues as well, are the approach from Bermuda, Cayman, Isle of Man, and Aruba, and any other civil aviation authority. We just happen to have this service level that the other authorities, for whatever other reason, because they are run by the state, which we are more approachable. And we have to understand why are we approachable. Because being offshore, we are open to foreign owners. Foreign owners are not taxpayers in our jurisdictions. We are 100% subsidized by the fees that particular client is paying the Civil Aviation Registry. It's impossible for a state like San Marino with 30,000 people that the state will subsidize the Civil Aviation Authority. So whatever the client pays is, and we have to move, is a business. So we have to provide the business to the customer to every day, like Simon said, 365, 7 days a week.
I agree. So, sorry, I just want to endorse that comment, really. I think, you know, I was struck by what Patrick and Marwan were saying earlier in their panel, and I couldn't agree more. So, you know, regulators have their place, we have a job to do, but the key to it, and I think all of the offshore registers are very focused on this, is that the regulator should not be seen as an obstruction. You know, we pride ourselves on facilitating high regulatory standards, but it's about partnership, and I think a lot of the registries approach it that way. So, you know, ICAO sets the bar. ICAO Annex 6, Part 2, Section 3, that's where the bar is, but it's how you get there. And so I think a lot of the offshore registries have focused on saying, right, there's the bar, but we're going to help you get there. And, sorry.
Exactly. So, sorry, I just like to add, because I mean, we are professionals. I mean, we have responsibilities as a state, like you said, to ICAO. At the same time, as we know, ICAO is not on top of us every day, making sure that we do our job. However, you know, there is international agreements. Our aircraft, like Len said, I mean, they land every day. They're in Europe. They're getting SAFA. I mean, and this is the feedback that we get, whether we're doing a good job out there. And I will tell you, I mean, our track record is impeccable. And I believe our colleagues as well, we're doing a very well job with our aircraft. I mean, and it's proud to see when you get a SAFA report, when a San Marino aircraft lands in Paris-Le and the SAFA inspector says no findings. Especially now that San Marino has entered a niche market of doing more commercial than private. I mean, we even have to be more robust with our system and regulate our operators.
So to kind of follow up, because I agree with everything that's already been said, but I think something that my father always says is that people do business with people that they like. And I think it's very important to have a very strong reputation, but you get that reputation by having good safety oversight, by being personable, by following up. So it's very similar to what everyone's already said on the panel, that we have to strive to grow the market in Aruba and to, because like David said, Aruba, very similar to San Marino, it won't support itself. So you do have to be personable, you do have to be friendly, and you kind of have to, yes, be the regulator and enforce it when it's needed, but at the same time, not be an obstructionist.
So going on from that, I mean, with the changes in aircraft registry, and you talk about business, we talk about flexibility, sort of moving from administration to authority and government departments. When it comes down to it, who are the stakeholders? When the cards are on the table, we're talking about commerciality and business, but who are the stakeholders for the registries?
Well, at the end of the day, the jurisdiction of the registry are the main stakeholders, because as you can see, we're at 5 jurisdictions here, so obviously there are choices for persons to make as to where they would put the aircraft. Yes, we all have the bar set by ICAO, whether it's Annex X Part 2, and as have been correctly stated, it's a matter of having acceptable means of compliance in meeting those standards and how it's approached. But at the end of the day, the jurisdictions for the reputation of the jurisdiction for the state of registry are the main stakeholders.
So in Aruba, we have the oldest private-public partnership with the Department of Civil Aviation, and I think just as much as the Department of Civil Aviation is takers, so are we. We care just as much as they do about the safety of our operations, about the oversight, and because it's very much a family business, as some of you might already know. It's a family-operated business, so we care very much about the safety, the reputation, and also every single need of the individual clients. So we go above and beyond, and so I think we're very much invested, as is the jurisdiction.
And Len, would you like to comment about how Bermuda's changed?
Sorry?
The shift in Bermuda from...
Yeah, Bermuda's just recently became a civil aviation authority, but it's essentially mostly financial based, that we have revenue streams and we can hire people a lot quicker. So it makes us more efficient. We're still an authority. We're still under the government at the end of the day. It's just that they're a little farther away from us. So safety is safety oversight. Having effective safety oversight is important. And if it's not there, your reputation's going to suffer, and your business is going to suffer. So it's good for business.
So if I wanted to set up an aircraft registry, what advice would you give for a new aircraft registry wanting to set up? I mean, I think they're beginning to tail off, but you know, what advice would you give in terms of commerciality, but also cost?
I would say, why bother? You know, you have enough registries right here. We don't need another one.
I agree with Richard 100%, but essentially there's a huge startup cost. You don't just say, well, I'm going to start up a registry. If you look at just alone the regulatory structure that you have to establish, I mean, you're talking a number of years to set that up. Again, ICAO requires that the state have their own competency related to safety oversight, so you just can't hire consultants to do it for you. At the end of the day, the Director General of Civil Aviation is responsible and accountable, and he has to have, at least as a minimum, a flight ops person and airworthiness person that can make a judgment that the contractor is doing a proper job of it. Thank you.
For me, the key is high standards. There has to be professional integrity there, because the longer this goes on, the more important that is. I think the market will decide whether there's room for more registries. This is a great industry. I really hope that the optimistic predictions that we saw at the beginning of the conference, and I'm always going to go with the positive and optimistic side of it, you know, there may be room. I don't know, but let's hope that we continue to grow and it continues to be the success that we all want it to be.
I think that there's always room for more. I think competition is good, and I think it kind of helps everyone step up their game a little bit. I think that definitely happened when San Marino entered into the market. I think everyone kind of saw where they were, maybe a little bit relaxed, and similar when Isle of Man came into the market as well. So I think it's always good to have kind of new blood and kind of see where you can improve.
One of the questions is, how do I choose what is your USP? Do you think a registry needs a USP?
What was the question again?
Yeah.
How do you choose a regulator? What is your USP or unique selling point?
I think a lot of that has to do with what your client wants, where the client's going to operate, what their needs are. And that's why I think it's good that there's a choice, actually, for the business aviation customer. Can choose one of these registries or one of the others to say, well, I think that's going to be the best fit for my needs. I think there are differences starting to emerge. I mean, right now, I'll put the cards on the table. I'm accountable for the Isle of Man, so I stand by the decisions that are made there in terms of aviation safety regulation. And so for the time being, we put our marker down and saying we're going to stick with private and corporate. There are reasons for that. We see other registries going more into the commercial world, and I'll leave them to comment on that, and that's fine. But I think the choice is a good thing.
I think more than just the registry, the jurisdiction itself is a major selling point. You know, in the Cayman Islands, we have a very strong financial and legal fraternity. And I think that in itself is a very strong selling point for deciding where one should register the aircraft. So whilst we have an effective aviation authority with strong standards and effective oversight, I think the jurisdiction itself and the laws of the jurisdiction support how effective that register operates.
I think from a cost point of view, a lot of the registries are fairly similar. Again, goes back to effective safety oversight because, again, reputation. When your aircraft is landing at foreign airports is probably a key feature. And, of course, obviously service. So you're going to have to look at those two aspects. But shop around. There's lots of competition.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, I was, when I was flying into London yesterday, I actually was reading an article with one of my colleagues, and was curious to see. The article was talking about a scene in this movie, The Wolf of Wall Street, when Leonardo DiCaprio gives the pen to one of the colleagues and says, sell this pen, okay? Actually to him. And it's hard to say because we have shifted around, because we may not be the correct pen. So it's difficult for us to sell the registry. We actually ask the client, what are your needs? What are your needs? What are you seeking for? Because you end up in this 3-page report, comparison analysis, why I'm the best, and which is wrong. I mean, tell us what you seek. What do you want from us? Okay, and then we will let you know whether we are a good fit for you. I mean, there is many options in the market. I mean, there is plenty of business in the market. I think, like Alexandria said, I mean, there can be more registries. I don't see a problem whatsoever, more registries. I mean, I think if you are focused on your business and you know what you're doing, you have an organization, I think you can continue on for many years. So I don't worry about who's coming in, coming out. I mean, focus on the client, on the business, and just continue moving forward.
Yeah. We've always said that our registry is kind of a boutique registry, so we're not going to be the right fit for everybody. So like David said, it is much more about like what their needs are. And that's kind of what we always try to do when someone comes with a request, like what is your need and how can we tailor our regulations to fit maybe possibly your situation? How can we help you?
There's a question up, how often do you folks compete with each other? And I think we've just answered that really from a you know, how you place yourself in the market and unique selling points and changing it to become more customer focused. But does anybody want to comment on competition?
Between us? I mean, it's hard to say. I'll speak just because, again, we are the newest. For the first 3 years and a half, almost 4, this was often the question. I mean, why you and what not them? And which I guess is normal. I mean, they knew us. They knew who we are in the sense that they know my father, what he has done for the industry, for this PPP, public-private partnerships with the government, initially with Aruba, now with Marino. So there is a track record, a reputational record from our company itself. But even though we were there, I mean, we needed to sell the jurisdiction itself. Why San Marino? So it was a challenge for many reasons. But we are here today, and like I said again, if you have a business plan and you focus, and the good thing about it is being here present today with the quality of people that you see here and the input that you get from attending this conference is super valuable to your business itself, to understand what each part of the supply chain is needed. There is so many people in a transaction. I mean, if you've been listening to the panels from morning until now, there's so many different people involved that you're able to satisfy that it has to be a win-win situation for everyone. So
I think also from a mindset point of view, I mean, I respect the other registries, I respect the other jurisdictions of what they're doing. My role as an aviation safety regulator, as I've said, and the Isle of Man Aircraft Registry was set up to be a cost-neutral springboard. So that by definition defines our thought process. So what are we trying to achieve by that? Well, I've already talked about high safety standards, but thereafter it's about facilitating the growth of an industry on the Isle of Man, but also facilitating growth of the business aviation industry worldwide. And aircraft go from us to the other registries and come back, and it's the nature of things depending on the operation. I'm in competition with safety, frankly.
Heather, obviously there's no lawyers or brokers on this panel.
So one of the questions getting the most thumbs up, have you ever needed to take action against an owner who didn't follow your regulations?
Yes. In fact, we do a fairly strict due diligence process to determine who will be accepted on the registry. And so it's not just an automatic fill this application and you're on. And yes, we've had to take, unfortunately, action at times for what you would consider rogue operators. The good thing about the aviation industry, whether from the commercial aspect, but even more so from the business aviation, is that it's relatively a small industry. And they will point out the bad players, and the bad players will get pointed out whether whatever register they're on. And I think we are obligated to take action in those instances. So yes, we have had to remove people from the register for not following the safety rules or other rules that could compromise the jurisdiction.
Yeah, I think like every registry here, of course we've had to take action with operators that are not following the safety regulations. But another nice thing about having kind of the public-private partnership is that we also have the ability to assist these operators and create a team of inspectors that can help them then fulfill our regulation. Like a good example is Air Astana, which is the national carrier of Kazakhstan that's registered in Aruba. When Kazakhstan was blacklisted, they registered their aircrafts in Aruba, and because of the program that we instilled, they were able to get the National Authority of Kazakhstan up to ICAO standard, and essentially I think they were blacklisted off the EU last year.
I think it's about a proportionate, measured, objective response. So I think it's a question of assessing the facts and looking at the situation of the case, understanding, I mean, I'm an ex-pilot, you know, things happen when you're flying, and sometimes people make mistakes. And so it's understanding the facts of the case and then taking the appropriate response. But yeah, as a regulator, you have to have teeth, and we were hearing this earlier on in the discussion between the lawyers and the brokers. If you don't have that integrity, if you're not appropriately robust when the situation calls for it, then you might as well just not bother.
So moving on, we were going to have to talk about it, unfortunately, the Paradise Papers. Yes, so I mean, I watched it with popcorn. Not sure whatever everybody else did. I know one of the more amusing things was in November, on a very wet and windy day, I saw a bunch of folks turn up at Ronaldsway Airport in the Isle of Man in their shorts and flip-flops. Maybe they got it wrong. But from an aircraft registry perspective, do you give tax advice?
Nope.
No, I think you have your fees, your regulatory fees, and the tax issue. Well, it's probably beyond my pay grade to talk about taxes anyway.
Heather, I'm a pilot, so I'll have to think about that for a minute. No.
No, of course not.
I can't even do my own taxes, so I would not give tax advice.
It's obvious a subject that's topical. I mean, do you ever think there is somewhere in an aircraft registration land that could be related to tax? For me, it's a very separate matter.
No, it is a separate matter. We've covered some of the parts of the jigsaw or elements of the machine of the aircraft transaction and then ongoing operations of the aircraft. And the registry is a registrar and then is responsible for aviation safety oversight thereafter. Tax is an enormously, I don't need to tell you guys this, tax is an enormously complex and evolving issue. It changes depending on where you are, and it needs specialist advice from experts in the field. So that's not something we intend to do.
I think we always get the question, we'll get questions from clients asking us, and we always just defer the question to an advisor, because that's just the best bet for them and for us.
So I don't think there's much more we can say. I mean, so moving from something which should blow over to something which probably isn't, Brexit, because it hasn't been talked about enough. How do you see yourselves inside the aircraft registries in preparing for or taking any opportunities out of Brexit?
I guess as British Overseas Territory, we watch this very closely. At this point, it appears to be anybody's guess as to what the outcome of Brexit would be. Personally, I don't expect many changes as far as the registry goes. The British Overseas Territories, Bermuda and Cayman sitting here, we are autonomous in our regulations and our registry. So the UK being a part of EASA, and whatever becomes of that at the end, it shouldn't affect us in any way, or I don't expect it to.
Yeah, I agree with Richard. There's no impact on Bermuda and Cayman. The good news is we didn't adapt or adopt EASA regulations. We are 100% aligned with ICAO, and our regulations will stay aligned with ICAO at the end of the day.
I echo you guys. Nothing else to add.
From our perspective, obviously we watch it closely. I mean, Europe is very important to me and our team. Primarily, we're an international ICAO compliant register. That's the Isle of Man stance. But obviously, Europe is an important market to us, and that's one of the reasons, particularly with EASA regulations in mind, and those of you that are familiar with the Part NCC requirements, EASA has sort of set up a situation whereby there's a slight conflict between state of registry and state of operator oversight requirements. So I'm focused on trying to deliver substance as far as our operator is concerned. So we've now signed 3 letters of understanding, most recently with the German authority, the LBA. And effectively what that does is it reasserts the right of the state of registry. So we're taking back the areas of regulatory oversight that Part NCC has envisaged. Why am I doing that? Well, because we should be doing these things as a state of registry, but also one of our mantras is that I just want business aviation to get on with the job. And if there's ways of making the regulatory burden lighter, more efficient, such that business aviation can thrive, then I think we would all want to do that, and that's what we're about.
Yeah, concerning EASA non-commercial complex regulations, it's pretty sad to see that come into place from the point of view of foreign registered aircraft that are domiciled in EASA member states. It duplicates regulations. It's contrary to ICAO, which is very clear. State of registry is responsible for corporate private aircraft. The only good news is that EASA was audited by ICAO in November 2017. The report's not out yet, but I can't see how ICAO cannot make some findings against EASA, essentially saying that you're not adhering to the convention and to Annex 6 Part 2. That's why ICAO exists, so we can have efficiency in aviation, and EASA hasn't respected that. So I'm looking forward to reading the report, hopefully in 3 or 4 months. And I'll share it with all of you.
So do you think there's any opportunities that have come out of this? I mean, there was a question before pointed at Simon about whether you feel that the Isle of Man Aircraft Registry will lose aircraft on the basis of Brexit.
I'm going to be really honest, I'm a straight-up fella. The honest answer is I don't know. We certainly don't see any evidence of that to date. I mean, I don't talk about numbers particularly, but, you know, given Brexit and also the media speculation that went on last year, you'd have thought that we might have taken a hit. The truth of the matter is that I've had one question from one lawyer from one bank about Paradise Papers. None of our clients have asked about it. The last 10 days of December, we registered 9 aircraft in 10 days. So I think the industry knows, I think the industry understands. We've got a wealth of talent and experience in the business aviation industry, and so I don't think you guys are easily knocked off your stride by these things. But there are a lot of unknowns in Brexit, and Mark Bissett talked a lot about that last year. There's 155 odd pieces of legislation to be addressed, if I'm recalling that correctly. I only know one way. You know, if I'm on a rugby pitch and I stand there all frightened, the opposition are going to trample all over me. So you've got to believe that we're being as robust, as objective, and as proactive as we can in this space, because I'm not just going to sit there like a rabbit in the headlights.
Let's see the question. In a post-Paradise Papers context, how do you enhance your practices and PR to address perception issues such as tax evasion, allegations, and AML? Anybody want to comment on that?
Sorry, Richard.
No,
please.
go right ahead.
Please.
They're fighting again.
No, I think the whole Paradise Papers issue is just going to blow over. I don't expect any. We haven't seen any effect, any ramifications to the register or to the jurisdictions. You know, the Cayman Islands is a tax-neutral jurisdiction, and there are those who may wish to define tax-neutral in certain ways, but we certainly make it a business-friendly environment for persons to have their aircraft and to do business in the Cayman Islands. I can't see that changing. I think we'll continue to do things as we have in the past, and it has worked for us. It's good for the industry, and no, I don't expect any changes.
I mean, you're asking an aviation safety regulator about tax. I think if I was to make one general point as a citizen, I think offshore international finance centres around the whole globe make a very significant contribution to the global economy, and I think we're deluding ourselves if we ignore that fact. If there's a moral conversation to be had about tax across the globe, then let's elevate it to the correct level. Let's make sure we've got the right people involved. Let's have informed comment and a measured debate.
In this department, we don't foresee an issue just because San Marino never ever been an offshore center like Cayman, Bermuda, or the Isle of Man. So that's why the registry was created with the concept of the domicile registration. So the due diligence, all these aspects are kept outside of San Marino. Also, there is no taxation structures done through San Marino. because we are outside of the European Union, so you cannot import the aircraft into San Marino to fly into Europe. So this has done, if the aircraft is registered in San Marino and the aircraft per se is based in Austria, then they will have to pay the taxes appropriate in the country where they're based. So
I'm conscious, according to the clock, 50 seconds until lunch. Does anybody in the audience have any questions or anything?
No, I think you've told them lunch is in 50 seconds, so you blew that. I think we'd like to thank you so much, Heather. Thank you very much to the panelists.